Hi, all again. Welcome to our educational webinar today. We're so glad that you could join us. We have a few minutes to start here at the beginning to do an introduction of our staff here. So my name is Victoria. I'm excited to have you here and to share our next installment of our educational series at 1000 Summers. If you'd like to take a moment again to check out that Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, we're going to use that for a Q&A session with Jane at the end of our conversation. So that's where you can put any questions that come up while you're listening. To get us started, I want to introduce Tim Lucas, who's the Executive Director here at 1000 Summers.
Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad that you're joining us for our conversation with Jane Sanborn. Jane has dedicated much of her life to Sanborn Western Camps in Florissant, Colorado, with whom our organization has proudly partnered for, I think it's almost 29 years. Beginning her career as a counselor at High Trails, Jane has worked in camping and with the Colorado Outdoor Education Center since graduating from Colorado College with a degree in English and education. She served in a director role at High Trails between 1970 and 1999 and was executive director of the Colorado Outdoor Education Center from 2006 all the way through until 2017. Jane is also very active in the American Camp Association, where she's taken on many leadership roles. Currently, Jane is the program chair for their national conference. I'm really excited that Jane is spending time with us today because she's someone that I've known for many years and who I admire and respect greatly. When I think about camp, which, let's face it, I do that quite a lot, and the talented and dedicated people who work in the field, I think about Jane, who epitomizes all that is both good and vital about camp. I am thrilled to introduce Jane Sanborn.
Thank you, Tim. That was a good one. It is an honor to be associated with 1000 Summers, and I really appreciate the chance to talk about one of my favorite subjects, the benefits of spending time in the natural world for children. Those of us who have been in camping a long time have always known intuitively and anecdotally that it is good for children to be outside in the natural world. We saw young people who spent a summer hiking through the woods, camping under the stars, and exploring rocky bluffs, transformed by their experiences. They found new confidence. They made new friends. And perhaps most importantly, they found joy and wonder. We also heard from alums who, even after several decades, remembered watching the stars at night, or the view from top of the world, or the smell of pines after a rainstorm. Mm-hmm. Some of the most poignant of these were alums who told us that during times of trouble and distress in their lives, they could go back in their minds to a quiet place they remembered at camp and find peace. Yeah. But in the early days, there was no research to support what we knew intuitively. That all changed in 2006, when Richard Louv released his groundbreaking book, Last Child in the Woods, Saving Our Children from Nature Deficit Disorder. Okay. In the book, he cites research study after research study that show that children who spend time in the natural world are calmer, happier, more creative, and more empathetic. Louv details many of the reasons that our children have become disconnected from the natural world, including our shift from a rural to an urban society and reduced access to natural environments. He also, of course, points to the amount of time that children spend with screens today, phones, TVs, computers. Right. In fact, he quotes one fourth grader who said he would rather stay indoors because that's where all the electrical outlets are.
Oh, no.
Louvre cites a body of scientific research that indicates that exposure to nature is essential for physical and emotional health, that it reduces the symptoms of ADHD, and that it improves all children's cognitive abilities and resistance to negative stress and depression. Throughout his work, Louvre also emphasized the very strong correlation between time spent in the natural world and opportunities for children to engage in free play. Maria Montessori famously stated that play is the work of childhood. It is through self-directed play that children learn so many social and emotional skills: cooperation, creative expression, empathy, responsibility, and the natural world is the best place for free play.
Yeah.
Statistics about the loss of time for free play outdoors are alarming. In just over a generation, the amount of time the average child spends in free play outdoors has decreased by more than 50%.
Wow.
Louvre's conclusion is that we can now assume that just as children need good nutrition and adequate sleep, they may very well need contact with nature.
Yeah.
So Louvre's book sparked a movement, and as many more researchers entered the field, the evidence mounted for the importance of the nature connection for children. Louvre himself did not deal with the impacts of the natural world on the brain in his book because there was no research at that time.
Right.
That came later. But during the last decade, the research indicates that time spent in the natural world physically impacts the human brain as well as our overall health. In 2017, Florence Williams' book, The Nature Fix: Why Nature Makes Us Happier, Healthier, and More Creative, specifically deals with the scientific research connecting positive brain activity with time spent in nature. Without getting into the weeds of impossible to pronounce parts of the brain, findings are impressive. Scientists have demonstrated, for instance, that when a child is in nature, his or her brain shows higher alpha wave activity, a wavelength associated with relaxation, meditation, and increased serotonin. Alpha waves are enhanced especially by natural sounds such as water running and the singing of birds. The release of cortisol, the stress hormone, is also reduced by time spent in the natural world. Even the smells related to the natural world, the smell of soil after a rain or the fragrance of evergreen trees, mitigate stress by lowering levels of cortisol. Other researchers have used eye tracking machines to determine how people looked at scenes. They found that while the eyes tend to linger lazily over nature scenes, urban scenes provoke many more rapid fixations and more blinking, indicating that the eye and brain are working harder to decode them. These places demand our attention. However, easy to process nature scenes trigger the release of natural opiates in the brain, which cause feelings of happiness and joy. These feelings of happiness and joy from being in nature are interconnected with what has been called a sense of wonder. And Rachel Carson coined that term in 1955, and her book remains a classic among lovers of the natural world. She pointed out that children are born with an innate sense of wonder, but many older children and many adults lose this intense feeling of awe and connectedness over time. And she made the point that our inborn sense of wonder can be reignited by time spent in the natural world. A sense of wonder is a powerful antidote to the stresses our children are exposed to, and it is part of our mission at Sanborn Camps. When Williams points out that even small doses of nature, such as a walk down a tree-lined avenue, are valuable for people. But she notes that, and I'm going to read her quote, "The rare but essential doses of wilderness in intense multi-day bursts can rearrange our very core, catalyzing our hopes and dreams, filling us with awe and human connection, and offering a reassurance of our place in the universe. There may be particular times when wilderness experiences can be most helpful to us, such as during the identity-forming roller coaster of adolescence."
Right.
Just last week, the Surgeon General spoke at an out-of-school time conference in Washington, and he said, children need three things: connections with others, time for outdoor play, and time in the natural world. That's what camps do. That's what we provide.
Right.
And what 1,000 Summers makes possible for so many children.
That's right. Thank you, Jane, for that kind of overview. I have some questions I want to ask for our audience here. Before I get started, I do want to note, I saw in the chat that we had a request for your references in books. So I'm going to let everyone know that when we send out the recording, I will put in all of those books that you are recommending, that research that you shared with us during your overview there. So I'll make sure we get that out to everybody at the end. Seems like you have some good sources there.
Right.
So we asked you here, like we said earlier, not just because of your decades of experience of working with children, but because you do these talks about and have done a lot of research and reading about the effects of nature on brain development in children. You've seen firsthand what that looks like. After listening to what you've talked, I'm curious, does being in nature have that same impact on adults as it does for children? Are our brains done? Are they solid? Or are there still ways for that to be changed and affected by being in nature?
Great question. Yes, nature has a powerful impact on adults too.
Okay.
And certainly the release of the serotonin and the opiates of happiness. Those things happen in adults. Time in nature reduces the release of cortisol, anxiety, stress. But a lot of the research that's been done on adults is health related, which is pretty remarkable. A walk in the woods for most people lowers their blood pressure. And there have even been more powerful impacts in studies that show that that a certain kind of white blood cell, kind of called a NK cell, which is a powerful immunity cell,
Okay.
is enhanced in nature, and those benefits can last up to 2 months after the nature experience.
Oh, wow.
Japan and South Korea, they are setting aside land for what they call healing forests for adults. So yeah, it's not quite the same as children whose brains are forming, but there certainly is a powerful impact for adults too. Mhm.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I know that if I am stressed and things aren't going well, that if I just go even take a walk around the block, or I live close to Garden of the Gods, so I can pop over there, that I know that I always feel better. But I hadn't really, I guess I had attributed it to just like moving my body, and I hadn't thought about it being in the environment specifically like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a real attraction for trees. They did a study where people could walk a shorter distance along a basically concrete pathway, or a tree line, a longer distance along a tree line pathway.
Mhm.
Everybody chose the tree line pathway. It
Yeah.
it's just a natural instinct.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
So we know that kids, I mean, I know that you talked about in some of the research that kids are not being exposed to being outside as much as they have in past generations. But, you know, kids still spend time outside. They're at recess at school, they go to the playground on the weekend, or they're at soccer practice in the afternoon. Is this time outside that they're having right now still having kind of that same impact on them as it would if they went to camp for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
Yeah, that's another good question. Organized sports obviously have a benefit in keeping children physically active.
Right,
And in many cases, they create a sense of community and connectedness with teammates,
right,
uh, which are much better than sitting indoors on a screen.
right,
But it does not have the same impact on stress reduction, or uh, impact on anxiety reduction, or just feelings of joy that the time in nature spends. And of course, it's very different than free play, which is self-directed by children,
right,
because a sport is a very organized kind of situation.
right.
So it's good, but it's not as good as being out of doors in the natural world, and uh, walking, riding horses, just camping out, those kinds of things. Recess is an interesting thing because so many schools have stopped having recess,
Hmm,
which is totally anti
right,
what all the research shows. In fact, the research shows that just having that break during the day to get outdoors is very positive for children, and makes their learning more profound, that they do a better job of learning if they have recess.
yeah,
It's and it depends on what kind of a playground they have. Do they have trees? Do they have natural grasses? What kind of situation is it? Again, it's a great thing for kids to have recess. Not quite the same as being out in the mountains or by the seashore or something like that.
right. Yeah, that makes sense. I would think that. I mean, I'm imagining my kids' playground right now, and there's tons of equipment and there's tons of fun things, but there's not a lot of trees and there's artificial turf, that it's a fun environment, but it's not the same as you're talking about being out in nature in that same way.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. We know that there's, challenges in our natural world right now, and these environmental challenges. I know we've talked about it in the past, but would you kind of share about, as somebody who leads a camp and handles programming for kids, how do you handle talking to kids about environmental challenges and the ways that that's affecting the natural world?
Yeah. Another great question. We don't believe that our job is to solve the environmental, or encourage our children to solve the environmental problems of the world. Climate change, for instance, is far too complex,
Mhm.
and they're not age appropriate for children.
Right.
Our job, we think, is to um, provide the opportunity for children to form a personal connection with the natural world,
Yeah.
because there is a great deal of research that says that if children have that connection with nature, they will then become the environmentalists as adults, and they may well be the people who help to solve these major environmental problems like the deforestation of the Amazon or climate change. So we want to teach children how to love and respect the natural world, and then the rest will follow when it's a more age appropriate time.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like hearing your philosophy around that and giving kids the chance to fall in love with nature and having kind of a stake in the future of the environment that they live in and the environment of our world. And that's a great way to talk to them about it.
Yeah.
So at 1,000 Summers, we do some of our own research with our campers and their parents when the kids return from camp. We send kids to camp like Sanborn Weston Camp, where they're there for 3 or 4 weeks at a time. So it's a long exposure that they have in that outdoor setting. And we see significant growth and development in, I think we measure 9 key areas, but some of the ones that are overlapping with what you're talking about are things like independence and problem solving, teamwork skills, but that affinity for nature, like you're talking about now, and then also an interest in exploration. That's things that the campers report, but also their parents are seeing it happening in their kids as well. When you think about the kids that you've watched over the years at Sanborn, what are your favorite things that happen for kids at camp? What are some of the stories that come to mind? I know you talked a little bit earlier about that sense of wonder and free play. Can you give us some examples of what that looks like at camp?
Yeah, one of the things that is really noticeable at camp is how children relax once they get here. When they first come in, they're kind of tightly wound. A lot of times they have stress, they have anxiety, and then within a couple of days, it's a totally different feeling. They're much more relaxed. We 2 or 3 days into each camp term, everybody goes out on our property for one night overnights, campouts with their living units. And I wish you could walk through the lodge with me when those trips come back, because the feeling is electric. Everyone has a story to tell. They saw a deer at sunset. They played silly games around the campfire. They heard noises in the night. They got up early and saw the sunrise from a rocky bluff, and on and on and on. Homesickness is gone. Anxiety is gone. Stress is gone. This happens every single time. And there are not very many places kids can go where they can relax in this way and be children. And that's one of the things I think we really provide, is a place for them to be children again. There's so many positive things that happen at campus. Shy child becomes more confident. A fearful child goes rock climbing and finds out they're really good at it.
Right.
Children make best friends with someone from a very different background. They climb a mountain and it transforms their way of thinking about themselves. And they constantly are reigniting their sense of wonder. I was on a river trip once, and the river was real low. In fact, you could barely wade in it. And we were trying to tube, which was not very successful at the time. But there was a moth chrysalis on a rock beside the river, and there was some movement there, and we had 30 kids on the trip, and pretty soon every single child on the trip was gathered around that rock watching this moth emerge from the chrysalis. It took an hour, and no one said, let's go do something else.
Right.
It was really one of those very special moments, and those happen all the time at camp.
Right. It's hard to think of, I mean, I have 4 kids, and hard to think of a time where they would see something like that or interact with that. And maybe in our backyard, but probably not. And having that kind of experience. I do think it does kind of rewire their brains. Like some of the research that you've shared does indicate that having those kind of experience in these really formative years can really change the way they think about themselves. We've had other researchers on in our educational series that you can go back and watch in our other videos, but they talk about that benefit of the confidence boost, especially at camps that we work with, because kids don't go for just 5 days. They're there for, 25, 28 days, that they can have the chance to experience something, like you said, with the rock climbing and discover a new skill or a new talent and just this boost in confidence that they've never had before. And that does affect them for the rest of their lives because of
Yep.
that experience.
Yeah, another thing, and that's, teenage brains are wired for risk taking.
Right.
And to have the opportunity to climb the mountains and rock climb and bike ride and canoe and sail and all the things that happen at camp,
Mm-hmm.
it feeds that risk-taking desire of
Right.
adolescents, so that they are much less likely to get into negative risk-taking behaviors. And that's, you mentioned the challenge, the accepting the challenge of these activities. And it's, again, there's another whole body of research about that. So just so many, somehow in camping, we stumbled into really what is a perfect environment for childhood mental health.
Yeah. You brought up earlier in the research about cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And I know that just in my daily life and listening to podcasts, that there's just tons of research that's coming out these days on the effect of cortisol in our bodies for children and for adults, but especially in children, because having those high stress experiences in childhood can literally rewire their brains.
Yeah.
And I think I even heard some research recently from Robert Sapolsky about how changing those that effects can happen and be passed down generationally. Like the changes in your brain can continue to pass down beyond just that one experience happening in childhood. You kind of mentioned it a little bit, but one of my favorite things about my job here at 1000 Summers is that I get to look at all of the pictures of the kids at all the different camps that we work with. And so I'm always trying to pull out our campers and find them, but it means that I get to see photos of kids getting off the buses, their parents unpacking them in the bunks and saying goodbye, and the way that they look in pictures from day one and the pictures that they look at on day 28 are completely different kids. Sometimes I have a hard time finding my kids because they look so different. Physically, they look different at the end of their experience at camp. I suspect, and I don't know exactly the science, maybe you can help me, but I suspect things like having that lower cortisol level, like you talked about, having the experiences in nature, having those higher levels of serotonin, and like you talked about relaxing, that can make those physical changes in kids. We hear from parents all the time at 1000 Summers that when their kids come back, that they're just different kids. What do you, I think you touched about it a little bit, but can you talk a little bit more about what do you notice in children after they've been at camp for a while that's different? I know that you work with the Colorado Outdoor Education Center, so sometimes you see kids for a day or two when they're doing their overnight experience for school, but what's the difference when kids have been at camp for a long period of time?
Yeah, well, again, they're just so much more relaxed. Our whole society, in a way, is geared toward taking away childhood. And childhood is inherently joyful and exciting, filled with learning. There was a great educator a number of years back, George Leonard, who said, education at best is ecstatic. And I believe that what we see is kids are becoming, as camp goes on, they become more and more open to that joy and the wonder and the just the laughter, the friendship. I think they also obviously the longer terms give them a stronger feeling of connection with their peers and the people they're living with. And you know, if you've been in it as long as I have, you've seen that some of these camp friendships have turned into lifelong friendships for many of the people who were here. And we've had kids say over and over, my deepest friendships are at camp.
Right.
And so I think that the long-term exposure, first of all, it gives them a real break from their day-to-day life. There's a lot now about the difficulty in kids giving up their phones, their devices.
Right. Yeah. We talked just at our last webinar with somebody who talked us through a digital detox, and he said you don't really get any of the benefits until 5 or 7 days out. Like it takes a while.
And so they become more and more comfortable with that. And I think that the longer term really gives them a chance to detox from the digital world. We do some 3 and 4 day school programs, and really there's significant research that says that 3 days in a natural environment is a great thing. But like I was quoting Florence Williams, the kinds of trips that we do where they go into the mountains for 4 or 5 days, those are profound. And when they come back from those trips, it's just amazing. They're filthy, they're tired, and they have had the most amazing experience of their lives. And they're so proud of themselves.
Right.
You know, there's just a lot of so many benefits of those kinds of wilderness experiences.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Just to let everybody know, we're going to start wrapping up our time with James. If you do have any questions, now's the time to put them in that Q&A box. Jane, I know that you had offered earlier, so I wanted to see if you take it up on us, that you had shared that there were some really simple exercises that you could teach us to use with kids and the kids in our lives, whether they're own children, grandchildren, kids that we have mentors here today, to help them connect with the natural world. Would you have a moment to share and walk us through that?
Sure, just a couple. You know, one of the most powerful things we do is we help children find a special spot in nature. And they go out as a group, and then they maybe spread, you know, 25 feet apart or something. But we talk about that special spot, and they sit there quietly for 20 minutes or so and notice everything about their special spot. And they usually write a little sentence or two, and we're going to show some pictures in a little while, and some of the quotes on there came from writings at that special spot. But again, the feeling of having a personal connection with the out of doors is what is really, really important for kids. So introducing them to the special spot, and they then have that special spot in their minds forever. And I think any other kind of activity that is sensory opening, you know, we do a lot of a blindfold hike where they find a tree, and they are led to the tree, and then they have to smell the tree, feel the tree, listen to the tree, and figure out, you know, become really connected with that tree. And then you move them and you take the blindfold off and you say, now find your tree.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Can they do it?
That is, yeah, they can. And it's an amazing connection kind of
Huh.
thing. Any activity that opens the senses,
Right.
whether it's hearing or smelling or seeing. There's a very simple one called Magic Eye, where you take a small piece of, even like this, um, or a small square of paper, and you look at the world in different pieces, and then put it all together. Any of those kind of sensory opening activities are really powerful, I think.
That's great. All right, we're going to get to our questions. Like you said, you had some camper quotes that you are going to share with us. So they'll be scrolling over here on the left side. These are photos from Sanborn, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so these are photos of actual campers, actual kids who are doing things at Sanborn every summer, and some of their sharing some of those times. This will keep scrolling through, so if you didn't catch it all the way through, you can do it at a time. Jane, I do have a question from our audience. They wanted to know, because of At a Thousand Summers, we work with kids who come from underserved backgrounds, so kids who couldn't normally get to camp by themselves. Do you notice a difference in the impact of camp on the camp experience for kids from those underserved backgrounds?
Oh, yes. And the American Academy of Pediatrics did they took 11,000 different research studies and combined the information. And their findings actually said that kids need time in nature, that the lack of it is a public health crisis. But one of the most important findings of all their research was that there was significant evidence that contact with nature had the greatest positive impact on those from the most disadvantaged backgrounds.
Really?
Yeah, and that was, again, the American Academy of Pediatrics. And we see that all the time. There may be more hesitation for those children in the beginning, but by the end, they are seriously transformed by the experience.
Yeah. Right. I think we hear from our camper testimonials very similar things, from not only from the campers but from their parents as well, that the kids their experiences at camp are really transformative for them, and giving them that opportunity that they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford is the mission of A Thousand Summers. It's what we're trying to do, to make sure that every kid has access to it. I know that you've been involved in a lot of the American Camp Association's research, and the study that just came out recently about that a camp experience can't be replicated by any other childhood experience. And I think that speaks to a lot of what you shared with us today, that you can be outside, you can go on a walk, you can, play soccer, you can have recess, you can have these experiences in nature, kind of in your suburban or urban settings, but it's not the same as having that experience at camp in a wilderness setting.
That's right.
Yeah.
It goes back to what the Surgeon General said: connection with others,
Right.
Time for free play, and time in the natural world. And camp is all of those things.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Jane, thank you so much for your time with us today. I really appreciate you sharing your experience with us, the research that you've studied, and just your expertise with us. Again, we will put the information about those books that Jane referenced in our follow-up email. So you can look forward to that in the next day or two, and we'll get it for you. If you are interested in supporting A Thousand Summers and the programs that we have discussed today, Alyssa is going to put a link to our donation page in the chat. We would love to partner with you in getting more kids to camp this summer. We do have another webinar coming up that'll be for February in 2024. I know that's a couple of months away, but we'd like for you to save the date. That's going to be February 15th. And we're going to be speaking with Dr. Tracy Gaslin of the Alliance for Camp Health, who I know is a dear friend of yours, Jane, and quite a powerhouse in the camping world, especially when it talks about mental health for kids and the benefits that camp do for that. So I'm going to end our time together, and I'm going to turn it back over to Tim. Thank you.
Jane, it's always such a delight to connect with you and to learn from you. You know, one of the slides there, one of your campers talked about walking taller in the presence of trees. I always feel as though when I have the chance to engage with you, I end up leaving those moments walking taller myself. So I'm so grateful to you and also to Victoria for a fascinating and thought-provoking conversation. Thank you to everybody who joined us today. We're so glad that you chose to do that. If you would like to recap today's webinar or share it with friends, then we will be sending each of you a link to the recording shortly afterwards. Our next webinar is on February the 15th. As you heard, we'll be chatting with Dr. Tracy Gaslin of the Alliance for Camp Health. Dr. Gaslin will be sharing with us the impact of camp and time spent outdoors on the mental health and the wellness of youth. We hope that you'll consider marking your calendars for this important conversation, and registration information will be sent out in upcoming newsletters and on our social media channels. If you haven't signed up to receive our newsletters and you'd like to do so, you can find a button at the top of any of the pages on our website, which is 1000summers.org. Thank you, and I wish you all a wonderful rest of the day and happy Thanksgiving.